Hello YouTube. So this is a video sharing some gameplay clips as well as my own personal impressions and initial thoughts. I've played the game probably for close to 10 hours, so maybe not quite initial, but some thoughts I have about EVERSPACE, which is an action space shooter game with some roguelike, I guess, randomization in your runs, as well as a persistent upgrade system. It's developed by Rockfish Games. I backed it on Kickstarter. So I wanted to share some things that I liked and didn't like. So starting out, the most important thing I think about EVERSPACE is that it's just a fun game to play. I'll talk about some more specific things I like and dislike, but so far I've just found that I enjoy the game. I like coming back to start new runs. For the most part, I have some minor complaints, but for the most part I enjoy getting back into it, trying to work through at least one successful playthrough in my several attempts so far. Another thing that I like about it is kind of a high-level meta point is just the genre that it falls in. So I liked Star Fox way back in the day. I kind of like science fiction. I like space shooters, but it feels like there haven't been a ton of these games, or maybe I've just missed them. And I think partly maybe it's tough to get past like simple shoot 'em ups, or maybe, like I said, I've just missed them. But other than a few games, 15 years ago, like Star Fox 64, Panzer Dragoon Saga, that had some of these science fiction shooter elements, I can't think of that many that I've personally enjoyed. So it's cool to see Rockfish kind of putting out a game that's a fun space shooter with some modern mechanics. So some specific things that I like about EVERSPACE is I like the snappy action. So this is not a sim game. You might describe it as arcadey, but basically the controls are super responsive. So there's not really any kind of inertia or thrust to worry about. Like when you press a button, you typically, or when you move the mouse, your ship pretty much instantly rotates in the direction that you're going. And that makes it just generally responsive, fun to play. Like it makes it easier to explore. Maybe it makes the combat a little less interesting, but I haven't had a huge issue with that. So I personally like the fact that it has a very snappy, responsive feel. Another thing that's great about EVERSPACE, so this is a visually striking game, and it's really cool to see a developer do such great artwork or graphics in this kind of space setting, because again, not that it hasn't been done, there are definitely games out there that kind of explore these kind of fictional space settings, but I don't feel like it's been done maybe often enough. So Rockfish has done just a great job with lighting, with creating anomalies, with creating a wide variety of settings, whether it's plasma fields or gas clouds or asteroid belts. You just see yourself in a lot of different settings that look like some sort of beautiful concept art you could find on social media or social artwork sites, and you get to enjoy that as you're playing the game. Another thing I enjoy about EVERSPACE is the variety that comes with it having some roguelike or roguelite elements. So each run is different. Each sector, in addition to having kind of a different visual setting, you might have different elements. You might have anomalies such as like a black hole, like some sort of plasma lightning field. You might have wreckages or ruins to explore. You might have outlaw bases, or you might have GMB corporate like mining facilities. So each sector that you jump to is going to have a different combination of these elements, and throughout the run, you're going to have a different experience, and that has, as a good roguelike often does, that's created some some interesting experiences where, maybe in one sector my engine was damaged, so for the next 2 or 3 sectors I'm kind of scouring closely for the components I need to find it, and I get into some rough fights, and then finally I manage to eke through and find a repair station or find some mineable gas to finally repair my engine. So the game kind of creates those scenarios through its roguelike action, or its roguelike generation. And it kind of segueing off of that, I found that some of the exploration is also has also been pretty interesting. So with these different sectors, these different elements, sometimes I'll find like stations with access locks that maybe I found a key for off an elite fighter. Maybe I found some ancient ruins that kind of fit into the game's like light lore, or maybe I'm just like flying through one of these big, almost these big like kind of hollow asteroids, which almost look like some sort of geode shape, kind of flying in and out of that. And along the way, maybe I have to kill some turrets, or maybe I'm some enemies spawn nearby and I have to have a fight near some of these structures you're exploring, all combined with kind of the visuals of popping in and out of these different areas or structures. It creates a pretty cool experience for exploration, within this setting. And then finally, on the things I like, the game has a pretty light, but I would say serviceable lore. It's a little campy, but in kind of a humorous way, and it's pretty low touch. You have an AI companion who talks to you as you make progress. The game kind of unlocks little story snippets about who you are and why you're trying to reach this place you're reaching. So not a whole lot to say there, but I think it is nice for a game to not be not to be just like a blank piece of paper, that there's a reason for you to be doing this, and that they can put a little bit of color and life into some ruins, or to some when you're exploring the wreckage of a ship, like maybe you know that there was a huge war in this sector, so that explains why there are wreckages everywhere. So a couple things I've disliked about EVERSPACE, and I found that these have been alleviated the more I've played the game, but it's still worth mentioning because of the upfront investment. And the first is the focus on EVERSPACE's focus on its persistent upgrade system, which persistent upgrade systems can do some interesting things in roguelike games. They can, reward players for encountering interesting scenarios, or add new customizations or playstyles, and EVERSPACE does do some of that, but they can also add a bit of a grind. And I say that in the context of when you first start out, especially your very first run of EVERSPACE, you're not going to have any crafting blueprints, you're not going to have anything like a sector scanner, and your energy and hit points and shields, and maybe even your critical damage and things like that are going to be all at a pretty low level, and those things improve as you earn credits and play runs. So it creates this sort of upfront investment where your first few runs you're actually you're kind of underpowered, and it also rewards a bit of grinding. On that point, it's also worth mentioning that I felt like the pace of upgrades, again, especially at the very beginning, is quite slow. So my runs were going between let's say 30 minutes and 2 hours, and I was earning between maybe 5,000 and 30,000 credits. Now, an important component like your sector scanner, which gives you more information on the sector map, might have an expense ramp like 2,000, 5,000, 10,000, 20,000, or an upgrade price ramp. So if you think about that, like to upgrade a major component like that could cost all of your best run and then some. So that's a quite expensive and slow-paced upgrade system. The other thing I would say is the nature of some of the tasks, and again, this ties in with the first point, but things like mining and exploring. So as you enter each sector, you're kind of incentivized, especially early on, to check out everything you can, collect all the resources, maybe spend some time shooting nodes and mining resources. And none of those tasks are individually very long or painful, but it does kind of add up, and especially in your first few playthroughs when you don't have crafting options and you don't know what fits what, and then you spend an hour or 2 hours and you spent a lot of time exploring sectors, mining, crafting, picking up items, these sort of tedious tasks, and you get to the end of a run and you die, because this is a roguelike game, and it can be challenging for sure. That can be painful. And again, because these mined resources aren't credits, they're not going to your permanent upgrades. So that, to me, especially in those first few runs, I found that to be a bit tedious. Now, that's been alleviated as I played the game, because I can make smarter decisions about what to skip and what items craft what weapons and armors, and I have more options. So it's less of an issue now, but it was something that colored the experience at the beginning. So yeah, overall, EVERSPACE is a game I enjoy, and I think there's a lot to like about it. I really like the genre and the look and feel of it, and I'm glad I backed it. It's a game I would definitely recommend, provided that you like action, you like roguelikes, you like shooters, and you don't mind a bit of a challenge and upfront investment. But anyway, thanks for watching.
Why are we so close to this star?
Do not be overly concerned. At the very worst, the heat will lead to short-term malfunctions of ship components. Actually, do be concerned.
Great.